Okay, so Dad got a phone call sometime the week of January 18th, saying that he had won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. That it was 2.5, no, yeah, it was the $2.5 million prize. And along with that, he was getting a new BMW and some gold medallions. And they they gave him instructions on what he needed to do on his end. He needed to pay some taxes and fees before they could issue the prize. Um, we knew nothing of this. A couple days later, under their instructions, he had gone to his credit union and opened a new savings account and was withdrawing money from his existing checking, his existing savings, transferring money from his accounts into this new account, and then withdrawing money from that account. And he was doing this from various locations, which I'm guessing he must have been instructed to do, because that's not something my dad would do on his own. And he was sending, the withdrawal amounts were very large, anything from $1,000 to $14,000. And he did say that he was instructed to send $10,000 bundles at a time. And he thought he was paying $40,000 in taxes and fees. And when I got involved and went through all of his bank statements and in all the withdrawals he'd made from his investment accounts, it came to over $72,000. And he was floored. He said, "Oh, I don't, I thought it was only 40,000." So he hadn't kept track of any of this. My sister and I found out about this in the first week in February. My sister got a phone call from police. The credit union had called the police and said that they were told my dad was making these large withdrawals and it was suspicious. And did my sister know the reason why he would be doing this? And she said no. And the police officer told her that he had told them that he was helping his son do some repairs on his home, put some new siding on his house. And my sister said, that doesn't make any sense. We have a brother, but he lives in Italy. And so she said, I can't imagine how he would be doing that. And so the police officer says, well, maybe he meant son-in-law. Are you married? And she said, yes, but we don't need siding on my house. And my sister doesn't need it on her house. So they said, well, you probably want to talk to your dad and check it out. So my sister went to my dad's home that evening and said, hey, Dad, what's going on? We got a call from police. They're concerned that, you're taking all this money out of your accounts. And she told them, or he told her that it was a big, he couldn't say anything. He didn't want to say anything. He was helping. Then it became helping their son buy a home. Now, my nephew lives at home with his parents. He was between jobs at the time and was not in a position to take on a home by himself. So she just said, she told him, thank you, for, helping him, but please don't do that. He's not in a position to take on a home by himself right now. Please, please don't do that. So she left thinking, okay, he's backing off from that. Well, I got a call from police the very next day. He had taken more money out, or had tried to take more money out of his account. And I had already talked to my sister. She called me and said, this is weird, isn't it? And I said, yeah, that just sounds, something else is going on. So when the police called me, then what came to my mind was somebody must be at his home with a gun to his head, making him go out and get this money and bring it back. He lived by himself. My mom had just passed away 5 months earlier, and he was, there by himself. So I got really scared. But I said, I don't want to just go over there, because if there is somebody with a gun to his head, I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. But that was the only thing I could think of. So I made arrangements to meet a police officer at his home later that day, that we would park down the street and we would get him out of the house so we could talk to him. So that was the plan. And then maybe a half an hour later, I got a call from another police officer from another location. This time they kept my dad and they said, you know, your dad's here. He's taking more money out of his account. Do you want to talk to him right now? So I got him on the phone, and it took a long time to convince him to tell me what was actually going on. He just said, it's a surprise. I can't tell you anything about it. You'll hear about it soon enough. I can't tell you. So I was still afraid, you know, Dad, I'm just so afraid there's somebody at your home. Is somebody making you do this? Why would you do this? And he said, no, I'm safe. It's a surprise. It's a surprise, but you'll hear about it soon enough. And so finally, after, you know, several minutes, he finally said, well, I won the Publishers Clearinghouse. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, I won the Publishers Clearinghouse. I just have to pay some taxes and fees. And I said, no, Dad, that's not what, you know, they would never ask you to send them money. If you win something like that, that's not how this works. They wouldn't do it that way. And he said, no, that's what's, you know, that's what's going on. And I said, no. So I said, I'm going to come over, talk to you. Will you go home? So went over to his house. I got the number for Publishers Clearinghouse from his home. We called Publishers Clearinghouse. He talked to 2 different people that said, we're very sorry. You did not win our sweepstakes. That's not how we do it. We would no legitimate place would ever ask you to send money in advance. That you're being scammed. That is absolutely a scam. They spent a long time with him on the phone, getting information so they could file a report. They suggested that we contact the police and file a report, which we did. I made arrangements with the bank to close his accounts because he wasn't sure, after he was instructed to open the separate account to transfer money into, he wasn't sure what information he had given these people. So if they were going to put money in the account or what. So we went to the bank to close out his accounts, open new accounts. I became power of attorney so I could keep an eye on things. And we changed his phone number because I didn't want them to continue to contact him. They were calling him several times every day, and they would ask, is anybody there with you? And if anybody was there, they would call back at another time. And looking at his call logs, he had just dozens of calls on a daily basis that they were talking to him. And we had no idea because we weren't seeing him every day. Anyway, changed his phone number, thought at least that was going to help stop the calls from coming in. Thought that we had convinced him it was a scam. And I left that evening, came back the next day. And while I was there the next day, he got another phone call on the new telephone line. And I said, Dad, how did they get this number? And he said he had called to tell them he couldn't send them any more money. And then the call started up again with new instructions for less money. They said, well, we just need you to do one more. If you can do one more, this one was an instruction to go buy a vanilla card from Walmart and meet somebody in the parking lot. And if you do that, we'll be at your house at 4:00 today with your check in your car. So I called the police. We waited down the street. 4:00 came and went. Nothing, nobody was there. So I thought we had convinced him, but it was probably a few more weeks of just telling, several people telling him he was scammed, because he kept saying, well, we'll see. Lots of people between the bank and the police told him how common this was and how he was being taken advantage of. But they convinced him it was real. And between what he had in his credit union, making withdrawals out of his investment accounts and his life insurance, and taking his maximum cash advance off his credit card, I figured it up to be $72,000.
What was that again? How much?
I came up with $72,200 that he lost. And he was just surprised at that. Because again, he thought it was a $40,000. So he wasn't even keeping track. And the only thing I can think of is he knew he was coming into millions of dollars. So why worry about chump change?
Right. And I think that's one of the more common things that people, it's like a common part of the conversation when you're talking about scams. It's really hard to convince people that it's not real because they just want to believe it.
Yeah.
And you know that these scammers know how to work it. Make
Yes.
people believe. So what would you say, to somebody who's watching at home, whether it's a senior or anyone
Well, it could be, yeah, it could be anyone. And as I talk to my friends, I hear about these situations, many Publishers Clearinghouse, but also like lotteries and, other things that it's not just the elderly. And there's nothing wrong with my dad. There's no reason, he doesn't have dementia or anything that, you would think that, they're picking on somebody old and frail. My dad he's in his 80s, but he's very healthy. And he's not one to just give away money freely.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody needs to have a conversation before it happens to their friends or family and say, if you get a call or something in the mail or something online, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Now, there are cases people could win, but you should be able to call them back or verify it somehow. And if somebody's not willing to let you check it out, then that should be the red flag to say it can't be real. And I would love to see financial institutions and retirement places take more care in, don't wait till somebody has exhausted all the money in their accounts to get somebody else involved. Now, again, my dad was joint with my mom on his accounts, so my mom is gone, but my sister and I have been beneficiaries. I don't think it would have been that difficult for somebody to contact one of us to say, hey, we're worried about your dad. This isn't normal behavior, or it's not normal for somebody to withdraw these large amounts of money. But again, if you can convince your friends and family before they get these calls, then maybe they'll be more skeptical and say, yeah, we talked about this and it doesn't seem right.
What is the credit union? It was a credit union, right?
Yes, Arbor Credit Union.
Okay.
And what made it, I think, maybe easy for them not to see a pattern, even though it's probably in the records, they instructed him to go to several different locations. He didn't go to his location to make these withdrawals. He went to a lot of different places. And he went all the way to Grand Rapids for the cash advance. And that's not something my dad would be comfortable doing. So I'm sure he was coached or instructed on exactly what to do.
I think it's interesting, though, that that the credit union did contact police. I wonder at what point they do that. Is that a policy they have, or somebody was just smart enough to know?
I think somebody was maybe smart enough to know. Although, I mean, there is a federal regulation, know your customer. I don't know who has to follow that to say, if your customer is doing something that doesn't seem right, you have the obligation to notify somebody.
Mm-hmm.
This was at the end of his money, so I don't know what their policy, but it took place very quickly. These transactions were all done within a 2-week period of time. So I don't know if a red flag goes up at the end of a statement cycle. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, scary.
Yes.
Scary. And we hear about it all the time, and they come up with different angles.
Yes.
It's hard to keep up. Oh, well, is there anything else you think is important to say? Can I get your dad's first name? I don't want to put his last name out there, but
his first name is Rick.
Rick. Okay. And he's how old?
He's 84.
Okay. All right. Anything else do you think is important to share, or
Um,
from your perspective, I guess it just sort of
well,
floored you, right?
to let you know, like I, I was just dumbfounded that my dad would fall for this. And so I thought there has to be something wrong with him. He can't be in his right mind. So I contacted his primary care physician and told him what happened. And I said, um, I've never heard of anything being wrong with my dad. Are you sure he's okay? And he said there wasn't anything in what he saw, blood work, and he had just had a physical like a couple weeks ago before this happened. And he said, let's just rule everything out. So he sent my dad for a series of psychological and neurological tests to make sure he didn't have dementia or something. And there wasn't anything.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
like I said, if they can convince my dad to lie to his children and to police, boy, that's some big convincing, because my dad he's always been a hardworking, very honest person, raised us to always do the right thing. So I just can't believe somebody could convince him to lie to people about this.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story. I hope it helps other people avoid the same thing, you
Boy,
know?
I do too. I'm so grateful that this is getting out there. After this happened, I thought that, why isn't this being covered more? Um, so I'm really grateful that there is a spotlight coming out on this. And I hope everybody who sees this will talk to their friends and family of any age, because it could happen to anybody.